Welcome. Welcome to the session Enabling Circular Electronics Skills for Cities, Business and Consumers. My name is Michael Kund. I'm leading the Collaborating Center on Sustainable Consumption and Production, and I will lead you through the session today. And we're also a member of the European Stakeholder Platform on Circular Electronics and on, of course, European Stakeholder Platform on Circular Economy as well. We lead the leadership group on retailers, skills, and consumers. And before I go there, maybe just some background on why actually circular electronics. And of course, if you remember, we are just living in a digital age, and we are just, of course, in terms of digitalization, we have more and more devices which we own. And because of this, we have also the electronic waste in the meantime is the largest in Europe, or it's even the largest globally. And it's even estimated that only 40% of the electronic waste is recycled in the European Union. But there's more to discover on circular electronics. It's also, if you look in terms of devices, of course, and just smartphones often reflected, we have a decreasing lifetime. So in terms of designed lifetime, of course, a smartphone probably would hold 10 years. But if you look back to your own drawers or your own behavior in terms of purchasing smartphones, you might be eager to have every second to third year the latest technology and the latest version as well. There's one more background to circular electronics, which is important to discover, that actually 1/3 of the European consumers have never repaired any electronic product. But there's also, on the other side, an opportunity, and the European Environmental Bureau put it very nicely. If you actually increase the lifetime of all smartphones in Europe by just 1 year, that would be equivalent of taking more than 1 million cars off the road for a year in terms of CO2 emission. So this is all the background for our session today. And this has also been the background of the leadership group on retailers, consumers, and skills. And over the last year, we have done with the leadership group members a number of EU circular talks as well. Maybe you have been engaging in this, but you can also still watch it. It's on the YouTube channel, different sessions and different webinars we hosted on this topic. And the leadership group also, of course, looked into what the European Commission is just doing on circular electronics. And you might be aware of the Circular Electronic Initiative, which, if you have followed today or yesterday's discussion, looks on both sides, on the production, so the supply chain side, but also on the demand side, on the consumption side. And our leadership group very much looked more into the consumption side, for example, the right to repair. And with this right to repair, of course, you're just also trying to engage consumers in the future. Today, you might know, repairing is quite costly, but how do we offer and how do we enable in the future consumers to engage on circular behavior? How do we offer them cost-saving opportunities? How do we make repair, reuse more fashionable as well? And there's more to discover. The European Commission also launched the Pact for Skills. The Pact for Skills is saying, well, basically, we still live in a linear economy today, and we need to upskill and reskill ourselves among very, very different professions in order to practice the circular economy. Being it a designer, a product designer who has been trained in linear, design now has to go for circular design. Being it a procurer in a retail organization, maybe having not looked into the repairability, into the kind of a number of spare parts that are still available after use of the product. And so there's a tremendous opportunity to upskill and reskill people. Based on this, we as a leadership group decided to launch a kind of virtual circular academy, which is trying to enable consumers, citizens, to be more circular. But we felt we probably need to start at the front end. We need, or even in the middle end, as you see it here, because we started actually working with retailers and their role in enabling consumers a more circular option. Why so? Because, of course, retailers are between the supply chain side, the production side, and on the other side, the consumer side. And we engaged a number of retailers in different webinars and trying to identify their role, trying to understand which skills are needed. So this is all the background of our session today and also of the leadership group. And if we look into today's sessions, what do we want to get across? We want to share with you latest insights on circular electronic strategies and key stakeholder activities. Not so much necessarily, as said, from the production side, but more from the retail / consumption perspective as well. We would like to discuss skills that different stakeholders, such as cities, social business, need in order to enable circular behavior. But also, as I started to say, we are living in a time of digitalization. And of course, with this, we have increased number of devices. Digitalization can also offer, solutions. And we would like to discuss with you as well with solutions you see, which can help to enable circular behavior. By the way, of course, you might also want to submit your questions, why you see them parts, why we have the panel discussion going. Please feel free to do so. We will also launch 2 polls today to engage you in order to get your view on different topics. With this, let's look briefly into the agenda for today. We're just into the intro at the moment. Soon we will have an impulse from my colleague Imke Schmidt. And then we will go into panel discussion, reflecting on those different issues, as just said, from different stakeholder perspectives as well. And with this, I would like to hand over to my colleague Imke Schmidt. She will come in very much with the consumer insight perspective as well. She has been working on circular electronics with a number of organizations, trying to understand the consumer in order to reflect again, how can we enable the consumer to be more circular? Imke, over to you.
Thank you very much, Michael. So yeah, I'm happy to be able to present our findings or our insights from the Consumer Insight Action Panel on electronics. And so you also see who was involved in this project here, which was funded by the Finnish Innovation Fund CETRA and also the German Federal Environmental Foundation, DBU. And also here you see that we had a good mixture of different stakeholder groups who were all involved. And together we tackled the question of how to enhance circular electronics behavior among consumers. So actually, why does consumer behavior matter? Maybe just briefly, because Michael has already mentioned quite some points. So just to remember, so the different strategies that we have in circular electronics, for example, repair, reuse, recycle, share, or lease. And of course, there's always a certain point in the life cycle of a product where the consumer really holds the electronic device in his hands. And so he needs to decide if he wants to repair or reuse. And he also needs to give it back if it shall be recycled, for example, repaired, or also shared or leased. So he has a central role, a central key role to play. But nevertheless, sometimes this role is still overlooked in policy, but as we have seen that this is already changing, but also in business, which is also changing, as we have seen in our project. So The question also is if we see that consumers play a crucial role, and if also consumers say, for example, in surveys that they are willing to play that part, then do they really actually behave accordingly? That's, of course, an important question. And as we see, so 80% of German citizens aged 14 and over have at least one unused mobile phone or smartphone at home. That is 56 million people. So quite a huge number and many, many resources. In 2019, over 1.5 billion phones were sold worldwide, out of which only 15% were used phones. The rest were new ones. And almost 80% of Austrian consumers have never repaired a broken phone, so which is quite transferable also to other European countries. So we see consumers' behavior change is one of the missing links here. The question is, why is it so difficult to change behavior, and what is so tricky about it? So all the pictures show here examples of irrational human behavior. So for example, one person puts like an empty coffee pot at a random place in the city, and the next person will surely follow, and after a couple of weeks we have a littering problem in this place. Also, maybe you have seen that a person puts a lock on a bridge, and there are so many people to follow that after a couple of months the bridge is full with them. Judges, for example, are known to take stricter decisions right before their lunch break than after. So better do not mess with the hungry. And also, of course, maybe you also know this problem. How many times do you put the snooze of your alarm clock until you really get up? So what we see here is people are irrational, yet much of the time we design things as if they were entirely rational. For example, and sometimes also especially when developing solutions to address social and environmental challenges. The good thing is they are somehow predictably irrational. So most of our choices, what we know now, are quick and automatic. They happen without even really knowing. Our decision-making is muddied by emotions, memories, and so on. But what we can also see, there are certain patterns to this. There are patterns or rules of thumb by which our brains attempt to solve complex problems of our daily life. Although they do not do so always perfectly, they help us really. And when we really know all these different patterns and rules of thumb, then this can help us, of course, to design those interventions that we need to change behavior. So instead of addressing people with information and calls for action, which addresses the rational part of our brain, let's rather ask, can we make it easier for them? So create the opportunity really. Can we make it feel normal? So how do others behave? Can we show that also others play their part? Can we change the language we use and speak to them as they do in everyday life? Can we make it fun and relevant? Because we remember much better what we are laughing about than if we get only serious information. Can we make people feel included? So not only be the only one who combats climate change, but that there are also others out there who do so as well. Can we tap into people's existing values? And also, where and how can we target which group? So really see where they are. Not reading the newspaper and addressing them to, for example, eat less meat, but address them when they are in the supermarket and do their buying. So this is actually what we had in mind when we did our circular behavior experiments within the project. We did this together with 3 of our pilot partners. One was Refurbed, a digital platform that sells refurbished smartphones and other electronic devices. Then we did this also with Renas, a recycling or electronics recycling company from Norway. And we did this also with HOP, an NGO on stopped plant obsolescence. So together with Refurbed and Renas, we looked at the question of how we can enable consumers to give back their devices, and thereby increasing the device collection rate. And here with Refurbed, we tested a trade-in option. So how we can get consumers to sell back their old devices on the platform. And here we used different storytelling formats, for example, videos on Instagram, but we also compared, for example, financial incentives with rather ecological benefits. With Renas, we had the chance to join their pilot project, which is called Redo It, where they created a homepage and sent envelopes to customers and consumers so that they can send back their old smartphones to them. And with HOP, we did a bit of a different exercise. We asked how we can enable consumers to prioritize repairable products, thereby supporting the right to repair. And here we tested the impact of a product repairability index, which is mandatory in France already on certain product categories. So our basic findings on giving back, so on the two pilots we did on this topic, also having in mind all these questions that I've presented before. So we found that if we address people personally, this can really help. So for example, if we take a direct approach via the employer, for example, then the context really can motivate. And if this is really a group activity, this also lets people feel included. Also, the return mechanism plays a big role. We found that drop-off stations are clearly preferred, for example, over sending back via or postage, free postage, and also clearly over pickup. Mutual commitment is also a very interesting issue. So if people need to register on a homepage, this can already create the commitment they need in order to really go through the whole process, from learning about this, the option to send back the phone until they really send it back. Data deletion, as you might imagine, is one of the crucial issues. So people really want to have feedback on the handling of the data, which is still on the smartphone, so that here really we can build trust. This would be ideally supported by a certificate. Then also the product history. This was really surprising. So we found that people feel attached to their old smartphones and like to know what happens to their device afterwards. So is it recycled, or is it another person that uses it? A bit less surprising was, of course, that the financial benefit arouses the interest of consumers. So if we offer them some money, then this really helps. Social media can also play a role. So this is also where people, of course, are every day. And so if we play videos here and for example, on Instagram, if we use these platforms, this can also raise attention. Our findings on the French Repairability Index are also quite interesting. We had here some general effects. So maybe to explain this quickly, here we did like an online experiment, which we included in a survey with 1,200 people. And out of 211 people who had made a purchase recently, 76% said that the Repairability Index was helpful for making the purchase choice. So quite a huge number. Also, consumers take into account the repairability index, for example, when shown two products of the same price category. A higher repairability index made the product significantly more attractive. We have also compared or looked at the effects of the repairability index in relation to brand loyalty. And here we found that the effect of a higher repairability index is more dominant with the non-favorite brand products. But interestingly, this changes when we look at the favorite brands and high-price products, because here the effect of a high repairability index is more dominant with favorite brands. So it is even likely that consumers change their favorite brand or leave their favorite brand in order to have a product with a higher repairability index. So this really can provide a competitive advantage over more popular competition. Also, we have some general learnings that I would like to present. So what we found is that there is just no one-fits-all solution when it comes to circular electronics. So it is about trust, it is about collaboration, and also about individual behavior. So really, we need to address people where they are, and each individually, or at least, let's say, those groups of a certain business. So we can't just say, okay, this one solution is valid for all. Digital choice architecture plays an important role. So this can be a really crucial component for consumers to change their behavior, because it makes it much easier to collaborate with them, to address them, and also to provide them opportunities. But at the same time, we need the analog choice architecture as well, of course, because I still, of course, need to have the opportunity to send back the phone or sell it. So the digital and the analog choice architecture must be meaningfully intertwined. Last but not least, there are certain key skills for all stakeholders that we see are really important for circular electronics, which is collaboration among all stakeholders involved. Then also technical and digital know-how. Then relationship management, which is changing a lot when it comes to circular electronics, especially between retailers and consumers, but also between manufacturers and consumers. And then also the knowledge about behavioral insights and behavior change. So with this, I would close for the moment. I thank you a lot for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Imke. Great insights, and thanks for sharing also the different experiments you have done with the different organizations, and also on the general key learnings you can formulate. Something certainly also we can reflect on in the panel discussion. But maybe before we go to the panel, just a question to you. So in a nutshell, what do you see as major opportunities then to engage consumers on circularity or on circular behavior?
So actually what we really found is that collaboration here is key, so that we really address people where they are. And so the opportunity here would be to really look also at digital solutions and see how we can use those to get really people on board and to establish these long-term relationships. So that would be one side of this, and the other side. So we really consider it important also to build partnerships with different stakeholders so that all of them can somehow interact with the consumer and also help them to change their behavior. So this is on the one hand a challenge, but on the other hand also an opportunity, because building this relationship, of course, also means building long-term relationships among business and consumers, which can, of course, also be a good thing for the business and also for the other stakeholders. So I think this is an interesting twist or change in the relationships we have today, and is a great opportunity for both sides.
Right. Thank you very much, Imke. And so I think then we are ready to go actually to the panel discussion, and we have 4 distinguished panelists. And let me start by one calling them in. And Evelona, if I start with you, you actually just set up a new startup, which you founded, I think, last year. And it's a platform which is called Furcado, that aggregates second-hand offers from the biggest marketplaces like Rebuy, eBay, Refurbed, and many others into one platform. So probably it makes it easier for the consumers to reach out. But could you maybe explain a little bit what was your motivation starting the company, and also just what you have heard maybe from Imke? How do you engage consumers to go and buy a refurbished product in the end of the day?
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for the introduction. So, basically, how Furcado was born is I've always been a climate activist since I'm very young, since I saw the inconvenient truth from Al Gore, which really shook me. And I was buying a lot of secondhand products. And what really is striking with buying secondhand is that it is not at all as easy as using Amazon. And this is definitely one thing that we thought, okay, how can it be that today one of the most impactful thing that we can do in terms of overconsumption and in terms of waste is to buy something that was already used and already produced, given that most of the greenhouse gas emission, most of actually the impact of a product, the negative impact on the environment comes at the design and before the product actually comes to the market. So this is really, how can we enhance and how can we remove all of the barriers to entry so that people get it much easier, that they can really buy secondhand products as their first choice. So we really see on the market that there is a lot of different players, new players coming every year, very successful ones like Back Market, like Refurbed, that you already mentioned. How can we make sure that we enhance the collaboration between all of the actors and all of the players to create more transparency on the market and also convince more people to switch from buying new to buying secondhand? So this was really the core of the idea behind Furcado. So what we do is we really aggregate all of the secondhand products out there to allow for consumers in just a few minutes to have a complete overview of all the offers available and then choose the best one for them. On top of that, we're also now developing a Chrome extension that basically you download it once, and then whenever you go shopping online on any website that is selling new products, we automatically pop up on a corner of your screen with, hey, by the way, we found this product secondhand here. It's 50% cheaper. It's better for the environment. Are you convinced? And then you can directly click there and get redirected to the platform that's selling it. So all of this comes from the realization that we surveyed millennials and Gen Z around Europe and realized that 75% of them said, we want to buy more secondhand, but we just don't have an easy solution for it. We just don't have the place. It's still too much of a struggle. It's taking too much time. It's too inconvenient. And still a few people are seeing it as kind of not as cool or not as fancy. And so by creating our platform, we're really trying to first educate on the impact of buying secondhand, how much of a positive impact it can make, and as well as also enabling them to act upon this new knowledge and to just very easily switch their consumer behavior. I hope I answered the question.
Thanks very much. And certainly we will come back to you. But maybe let me just bring in the next panelist, Semina. You have been working on the national strategy on circular economy in Romania. And maybe you can elaborate a little bit what this is about. And also in terms of circular electronics, from a country like Romania, do you see certain challenges or do you also see certain opportunities looking onto it?
Hello, thank you for invitation. And I'm glad to see you again, familiar faces. Related to your question, what can I say? Just that the sustainability has become a key part of the global agenda and the fact related by the creation of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. In this context, we try to work on Romanian strategy for transition to circular economy, a crucial tool for decoupling economical growth from future and unsustainable resources use and increasing CO2 emission. We believe that with adopting digital solutions such artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the Internet of Things can redefine production and consumption in the 21st century, powering a new circular economy that can work from people and planet. But from here to the reality, it is a long step. And but in addition of this aspect, we need a market for selling these goods where we are telling about product or services. Because we don't have yet, let's say, a very good legislation in this direction. A standardization we developed only 2 years ago on repairing for reuse. And measurement tools, technical requirements, procedures, local points for repair, but also strong industry, for instance, company that can work with large quantities in order to be able to talk about resource efficiency. In Romania, for instance, the legislation of waste electrical electronics is very clear, but when citizens or consumer take all the equipment to the retail, or we speak here about the extended product responsibility, they are collected and they are selling a future per kilogram as waste to the recycle. And when the recycle want to repair and put this product on the market, is not possible because here we don't have the legislation. And with our strategy, we tried to come with an objectives related to increasing the degree of recovery and preparing for recycling of products components by 20% comparing with 2010, developing new technology to ensure their integration in new products. Or we tried to dealing with all the 10 R's in our strategy in order to increase the proportion with, let's say, 30% from our GDP. It's not easy because, how I said earlier, we don't have a clear measurement tools on circularity, and it is let's say a big problem, not only from Romania. This is a problem from all the world because we want to make a circular economy, but we don't have yet developing all tools. And digitalization can help us in some part with let's say be more efficient in our resources, in our operation, in our optimization of the let's say all the flow production. And I believe not only this, in developing a new direction in circular innovation, how I said, we financing 2 years ago to the Romanian funds 21 startups. It was a pilot program financing to the Romanian structural funds with 50,000 euro for circular social businesses, because we noticed that it's much more expensive to make circular economy on a competitive market. As long as virgin raw materials is cheaper than recycled raw material or secondary raw material, it will be difficult to develop this market for circular good. For this reason, we believe that circular social businesses must be supported because they can bring circular innovation and can contribute with small but a sure step to the development of this market. And of course, we must not forget the biggest company that can make production to the scale and come with benefits for circular economy. This is, let's say, one point that I have it in my mind related to the what we do it until now, and the strategy. I hope that will be the, let's say, way in which we can implement our direction in circular economy in Romania.
Thank you very much, Semina. And probably also on this we will come back and maybe also see on, besides startups, what maybe the strategy might include. But before we go there, Michale, I would like to turn to you. You are the director of Reuse, and Reuse represents social enterprises in the circular economy. Could you explain, because we just heard also from Semina, she counted it social, environmental startups and businesses. what your social enterprises are doing in your network. And maybe for those who don't know reuse, maybe a little bit also about what is your motivation as an organization and what are you trying to drive in terms of circularity.
Thanks a lot, Michael, and also to Imke, Velina, and Sumina for your excellent interventions. I must admit, I have so many questions myself, which I hope we can get into a little bit later on. From our side, thanks for the invitation. My name's Michael Len from Reuse. Our organization is a European network of social enterprises active in the circular economy, with the majority of them working in the space of reuse, repair, and recycling. Currently, we have over 30 members from 26 countries, and together they represent a wider social enterprise community of just under 1,000 individual social enterprises. Now, the majority of these organizations are so-called work integration social enterprises, which means that they conduct an economic activity. In our case, it's reuse, repair, and or recycling, through which they provide job and training opportunities to people who are very much distanced from the labor market and at risk of social exclusion. So through their activities, they provide key circular products and services for their communities, including like access to essential goods and also other support services for the vulnerable individuals in their communities. We work across a wide range of domains in the circular economy, including textiles, furniture, electronics, also construction materials. And collectively, these organizations handle around 1 million tons per annum 1 million tons annually through their activities. So I would say circular economy and skilling and upskilling of individuals within this space is really at the heart of their work and also ours at European level. And specifically about us, we're Brussels based, and our network is here really to serve and represent our social enterprise community, helping them drive their development wherever possible through stronger policies, especially on reuse and repair. And Semina alluded to quite a few of the obstacles that exist with regards to those legal obstacles. We want to share best practices, but also help replicate best practices and foster new partnerships for our members and also projects in the circular economy. That's really a little bit about our organization, and we simply want to ensure that mainstream businesses and also public authorities and cities really look to reuse and repair as a real meaningful way to do more with less, but also to create lots of inclusive jobs locally. So that's for us a little bit of an introduction.
Michael. And then moving to the last but not least panelist, Yanis. You work as an expert at the European Environment Agency, and the agency supports very much European policymakers through provision of relevant environmental information. And the circular transition will, I think, also happen at a local level. I think we have heard this already before, and where basically recycling, use, and repair is usually also organized. It might be either on a global level, but probably there's much to be done on the local level. But you work also, and you just did a study on consumer behavior and consumer engagement. From your perspective, what actions are needed actually to engage consumers?
Michael and everyone, and thanks a lot for inviting me to this really interesting discussion and for allowing me to bring some points that we've been working on at the agency. As you said, our mission is to try to provide robust information and knowledge to the policymakers so that they can make more informed decisions. And in that context, we have been working on understanding a bit better the role of consumers in bringing about the change needed for transitioning to a circular economy. So our work is focusing on understanding a bit better how consumers decide in order, at the end of the day, to design more effective policy tools that can stimulate a more circular behavior from them. So if you think about it, consumers interact with products all the time, and they make decisions around them every day. We all do, yeah? But there are some distinct points in the product's life cycle that are a bit more important than others. So when we make decisions about buying something, acquiring something, when we make decisions about how to take care of the product we have, and when we make decisions about whether we throw it away or we keep it a bit longer, these are the three main points where consumers have the most impact on the circular economy. Now, how do we decide? I think Imke gave a really good introduction in this behavioral analysis of consumers, but it is important to understand that we decide based on some specific factors. We are indeed irrational, but still we are predictably irrational because we take into account, whether we realize it or not, a few very distinct factors that have to do with economics, like how expensive is something that we want to get. They have to do with social pressure and our personal beliefs and preferences, the information we have available, and the offer that is out there compared to what we need ourselves. So if we understand better these factors, then we can design policy tools that stimulate either one or more of these factors in favor of a more circular behavior. I think it's important to note here that it's not like there's out there someone that is fully circular in their behavior or someone else that is fully linear in their behavior. But it's just that decisions we make, they're moving us towards a more circular behavior or towards a more linear behavior. And this is what we should try to stimulate, try to shift people into making a bit more circular decisions. And the tools we have at hand are policy tools. And so if you design tools such as taxation, that would probably favor a circular solution, like giving VAT exceptions for repair. This is quite widespread measure taken up by many countries. These are the tools that we're talking about, and these tools can vary a lot. It could be the things that are promoting circular alternatives or are trying to move against linear alternatives. There's also a range between hard measures like banning some choices. The Single-Use Plastics Directive banned some products that we consider to be not very circular. Towards and the other end of the spectrum is some softer tools like providing information through labels, or like the Repairability Index that you also spoke about, Imke, before. So just to wrap up, our work is focusing on understanding consumer behavior in the context of a circular economy so that we can make sure that policy tools are designed through this understanding, and in that way they increase their effectiveness. And happy to share more about that later. But as an introduction to our work, I think that was very briefly covering it.
Thank you, Yannis. I know there's more to discover, but thanks already for good insights. And maybe before we go on with the panel discussion and we get more insights, let me just put also the first poll to you forward. And the first poll would be actually about where do you see the main challenges for scaling up on circular electronics? You can pick one of those options, and they will be also good for the further discussion, I think, among the panelists. And let's just see what the results will be very soon. And of course, you might be more into missing skills among different stakeholders. You might think it's more about a lack of enabling infrastructure. Actually, we talked to a number of retailers, and they were always pinpointing that there is still spare parts missing for many of those electronic products. Or just as Yannis outlined, I think it could be about current policy and regulatory framework. So yes, and there are the results, I would say, and I think it's more or less a little bit balanced, but number 5 come on most, and that's a lack of incentive to change business as usual. And then we have two others, number 1 and number 4, and that's missing skills, and number 4 is missing collaboration among those stakeholders. So maybe going back to the panel, if you read those type of findings and the opinion of the participants, does it resonate with you? Does it resonate with your findings? And maybe even more, what can we do about it? How can we overcome those type of challenges? Who likes to go first?
I could maybe say something about this. I think there were a few very important and very interesting points that were mentioned earlier by the other panelists. And to be honest, when I see the results of the poll, well, the poll was very short, so I guess not everyone had time to vote. But what I see when I hear, for instance, the research that has been made by Ioannis or some of the key insights from Michael, I'm thinking, how great would it be for me as a business, for us as startups, as businesses who are trying to move things around in this direction, to actually collaborate and say, okay, we still need some information on how do we really touch the people, what is from their irrational, predictable behavior, something that we could use to actually tap into it and say, instead of having to do all of the research ourselves and to spend a lot of time and money on marketing campaigns that might not be as efficient as they should or as they could, why don't we just also a collaboration between actors from the academic field, from the political field, and from the business field as well, could, I think, enhance a lot the impact that we could have on this market. And in building long-term relationships, we could really, I think, move this forward. And I think this is really a key part, because there is, of course, regulation needed. I think in terms of right to repair, for instance, in terms of banning planned obsolescence, making sure that things like Fairphone become actually kind of the norm, because not because of them as a company, but because every phone that we create should be repairable. That we need to also invest in technologies that allow us to somehow make this possible for every piece of electronic that is reaching the market now. And also, as you said, finding ways to train the people from businesses and from workers that are able to really give a new life to those electronics. But I think collaboration between actors and between all of the different types of pillars of the circular economy is really essential.
Thank you, Evelona. Other opinions? I think, Evelona, you just highlighted very much on one of the findings from the poll, missing collaboration among different stakeholders. But I don't know, from the rest of the panel, is there any other feel what else is important or how to overcome the challenges?
I maybe build upon the same title, the collaboration. I think the stakeholders are consumers and stakeholders are also manufacturers. And there are ways that these two groups speak to each other. In my view, at least, the production consumption systems for electronics are integrated. So in a way, there is a shared responsibility for bringing about the change that we need for a circular economy. So the manufacturers are responsible because they are the ones framing our choices. If they all decide tomorrow to make smartphones that last for a year, what choice do we have to choose something that is durable? Yeah. But on the other hand, we as consumers have the opportunity to send signals upstream to the producers and manufacturers about our own preferences. So if we consistently try to select products that are more circular, then the designers will probably get the message and trying for competition reasons to design things that are more long-lasting, etc. So I think this communication exists already, and we do have the power as consumers to send our demand signals upstream in order to make the change that is necessary. Yeah.
Yes. Michael, any reflections from you? I mean, one of the point was also lack of incentives to change business as usual. I mean, you operate, of course, with social business, but apparently there's not a lack of incentive because they're doing the repair and the reuse. Is there anything we can learn from them? Is there anything we can scale looking on their business models?
Well, a little bit following up also on the conversation on that point. I think it's just key for us to try and make reuse and repair as convenient as possible to the consumer, and it's really something that we see an increasing lack of options, and that's really highlighted in a number of surveys, the lack of options that individuals have with regards to having their goods repaired at a decent price in a way that does not inconvenience them from their everyday lives. And so we somehow need to create incentives and the necessary skills to bring back a repair culture throughout Europe, because this is somewhat something that has been lost. Our linear economy over the years has somewhat desensitized our society to the need to care about our resources, the need to try and prolong product lifetimes. And this is filtered down also into our educational systems, which do not necessarily prize the manual skills and the intrigue, I would say, to have our things repaired. And I think with regards to one of the strategies that definitely needs to be moved forward with regards to creating a wave of moving us towards a repair or maintenance economy is definitely to start within the schools and education systems to value this type of activity and this type of manual skill and know-how. Going back to the convenience side of things, it's also what Imke mentioned. I think knowing where to donate or how to donate things that you have and don't need anymore, I think is very important, again, with regards to making the whole reuse sector more efficient. I must admit there are some questions asked over practices regarding voucher systems of donation. We see some major brands who have been I would say focused on selling new and still are focused on selling new, who are introducing voucher systems under the guise of circular economy. You can trade in some of your goods. We will give you a voucher, but this voucher is there to purchase new goods. And questions are asked as to whether this is really supporting the circular economy or business as usual. So when we're looking to major brands and the buy-in from companies, when talking about the circular economy, I think it's important to be very transparent about what's happening with the goods and what's happening with the money, etc., and ensuring that the consumer is actually contributing to the circular economy. On legislative side of things, yes, we can see that having stronger legislation with regards to reuse and repair will definitely send a stronger signal to the manufacturers, to everyone in the product ecosystem, in order to be able to produce better products and to invest in the necessary infrastructure to ensure that product lifetimes are extended. At this moment in time, it's focused on recycling rather than reuse, and this needs to change. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time for legislation to change, but under the vast amount of circular economy actions that the Commission is putting forward, I think at least the trajectory is in the right direction. And so, yeah, I think for me that's some points I wanted to raise. Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. And we actually had just a question coming in on those. What do you think are the most effective ways of promoting circular economy in the electronic sector? And I think you highlighted different aspects from push and pull already. But maybe, Semina, also from your perspective, you have created the national strategy. What do you see, needs to be done further in order to enhance also circularity in Romania, and especially circular electronics?
Yes, how Michael said earlier, I'm totally agree with him, but I want to add the current policy and regulation framework. It is, for instance, in our country more important, because our problem now, it is related that we have tons of electronics waste that are considering in this way classified, and we can not be put it on the market and repair it because we don't have the legislation in order to do this, and this is a huge problem. And the other is related to the incentives that how Michael said, in order to help social circular enterprises to repair or refurbish or developing a circular economy in their own businesses. And yes, we have a lot of discussion related to VAT on repairing or removing the VAT. We don't have an answer yet, because how I said, we are working currently in our legislation, because for here the things are going, but how Michael said, the European Commission working in this direction, and we believe that in this year, because I hope that in this year we will solve this problem and we'll have a legislation in this way. And our market, because right now we can speak about a market of reused or repair products, we can talk about the market on second hand, because our legislation in Romania, it is in this way, and don't encouraging the repairing and reusing goods. And for this reason, maybe the behavior is another thing. We start 2 weeks ago a research in analyzing the consumer behavior related to using products or goods or materials that are repairing or reuse it in their intention of acquisition the products. And with this result of the research, and with the working group that we have it on the Romanian Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, that with the group that we start when we are working on the Romanian strategy, we hope that we can come with some results in order to have a policy and let's say a clear procedure in this way, because without a standardization, labeling, and a clear regulation in repairing, is very difficult to put this on market.
Thank you, Simona. Michael, I think you pinpointed on education before. You said we need to look into the skills, and I think that's also something we heard from the panelists, but also from Imke in general. Maybe let's just launch the next poll, but while this is running, let's maybe start already to reflect a little bit on skill building. And I think probably if we have been growing up in a linear economy, well, we need to learn all a little bit. As I said in the introduction, being it in the waste management sector, I might need to rethink certain things. But I might have also lots of good knowledge, being it in a retailer, of course, activity. Same thing, I can change procurement criteria, or being at a producer, I can look into design. Michael, what do you think, what needs to be done in terms of skill building? You do this with your social enterprises, but how do we, again, scale this basically? Michael? Hello? Michael, can you hear me? And in the meantime, I think, well, Michael, looks like you cannot hear me. It looks like that answer number 4, I don't feel properly skilled. Other stakeholder groups, consumers, was the main response. So I think that probably hints that we still need to do quite a bit besides, let's say, all the regulatory work, the incentive work to really skill ourselves on circularity. I don't know, Michael, if you don't hear me, then any other panelist who would like to respond to this question?
It's all good. Michael, sorry, I could hear you, but I couldn't literally unmute myself because I had a tab open, which was, sorry, it doesn't matter. Yeah, in terms of scaling up skills development in the circular economy, I mean, it's clear from us that this move towards repair and reuse and a maintenance economy has tremendous amount of opportunities for everyone of all skill levels. You know, many of these skills and opportunities are already available. We were not talking about new skills, maybe bringing back certain basic know-how than we had previously and adapted to different contexts. The world of reuse, as Imke has already highlighted, is tremendously diverse, and it involves collections, it involves logistics, storage and handling of goods, so on and so forth, all with their individual transferable skills. There's also the repair and refurbishment side of things, which is more, I would say, on the technical side and needing certain mechatronic and electronic understandings of products if we're just speaking about electronics. But there's also the whole other side of the repair and reuse ecosystem, such as the after-sales service, the online support, so on and so forth. So there is a tremendous diversity with regards to what a maintenance economy could offer people in terms of jobs and skills. Now, how to scale it up? We are looking, traditionally social enterprises in any case have a lot of partnerships with public authorities, but also private companies. With the private companies and private sector, often our enterprises will be working on 6-month to 12-month training programs with individuals to get them to a basic level of understanding with technical competencies, so on and so forth, and we'll have a partnership with another company. It could be a major brand, it could be a local business, so on and so forth, who would then take on these trainees and give them, extra training, extra know-how, and hopefully in the short to medium term would then give them a job. And so these kinds of partnerships are the kinds that we are trying to scale up. And when we're thinking about circular jobs and skills for the future, and also the Commission's wider work on the Pact for Skills, so on and so forth, we would love to see a kind of idea of a circular skills of excellence institute in all member states, and to have social enterprises as being, one of those delivery partners in helping support people in essentially upskilling the economy for what hopefully will be a lot of demand for these kinds of skills. Because at this moment in time, we are still talking a lot about the circular economy, but the demand side with regards to actually having businesses moving towards these type of mainstream ideas based around repair and product longevity, we are still not there yet. So there is a little bit still to be worked on with regards to the demand, to the demand side. Yeah.
Also I like to strongly support this, and also maybe bring together what Evelina has been saying before on collaboration and what Michael has now presented on the different stakeholders and what they can bring with them when it comes to skills. So if we really want to collaborate, so it's super important, I think, that we somehow get all the skills that are needed from the different stakeholders that are just like flying around there, and that we just create these networks and collaborative networks in order to exchange skills and facilitate skill building. So for me, here also the local level would be crucial, so that we bring that, for example, to the city level, that we involve city representatives so that they can really facilitate this skill building among those stakeholders at a local level, where they are also, where consumers can go to. For example, could be like a center, a topic center, a competence center, but where also business can meet and social enterprises can meet. So I think here the local level is crucial, because this is actually where circular electronics is happening, because this is where people go, where they give back their smartphone. This is where they go shopping. So I think the city level should be also regarded here and taken into account.
Okay. Evelona, there is a question coming in about also the role of social media and how we can engage consumers using social media. Are you, with your startup, doing anything on the social media? Are you trying to get consumers to your platform using social media?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we are, as Imke, you were saying, we're trying to get the people where they are, and this for young generation means social media for sure. So this is a big part of our strategy in terms of education and in terms of also consumer acquisition. We want to build a strong brand that actually resonates with the values and the concerns of the younger generations, which are really turned towards the future of the planet and towards our economy and so on. But just to quickly take a step back and reflect on what Michael and Imke were saying on the skill building, I think everything is really linked. So we have an economy that is somehow valuing the new things more than repairing, because it is actually more expensive to repair our clothes, our electronic, than to buy them new, especially when we think of ultra fast fashion, like those really cheap clothes, for instance, or even with electronics. So we have created, somehow we have lost completely this link that we used to have to the value of things and the responsibility as consumers that we have into making them last and into repairing them. So I think because of this, then we've also lost the skills on how to repair them, because if no one is just bringing their clothes to the tailor to make them repair, then obviously there's way less tailors, and as well, because there's way less tailors, the ones that are there are also less valued and they earn less, and then we end up in a society where those kind of skills are not at all valued and not at all considered as much as they should be, and as much as the skills of I don't know, people going to universities, for instance, which is completely stupid, because we need everything. And because if we want to scale this circular economy, we absolutely need to bring back this culture of making things last, and that means also on a regulatory level incentivizing, as there was said in the chat. I think we need both to kind of punish and to incentivize. To punish those very non-sustainable new goods that are coming in the market and make them more expensive than to repair something, and also to make it more expensive to throw away our goods that could be repaired. So there's really this kind of, everything is tied together, and I think that there's so many different aspects that are linked to this circular economy and to transforming our linear into circular. It's really tied to a lot of the key values that we, and how we define value in our societies, really. But yes, so in terms of the social media, definitely there's a huge potential there to make mentalities change and to really make people switch. I think that there, as Imke, you were saying in your very interesting surveys, which I would love to talk more about maybe at a later stage, there are plenty of things that we can tap on in terms of behavior, in terms of image that people have on circular and on secondhand. And we are definitely trying to leverage this as much as we can. But obviously, this is again a matter of, I was talking to investors, and investors are saying, well, it's great if the EU is pushing for more stronger regulations in terms of repairability and in terms of circularity, because they go where investors want to put their money where the regulations go. So again, this is super tied to it. It means that the startups that will be financed will also somehow be linked to where the regulations from the EU are coming. So we are really, everything again is coming back together, and we end up with, if the regulations are going in the good direction and kind of against this make, use, throw economy, then there will be also much more innovation and much more startups that will come in this market, that will enable also consumers to do it on a larger scale.
Yes, thanks very much. Yanis, I would love to give you the floor, but unfortunately we have just 3 minutes left. But maybe just a very quick reflection from you, what you just heard, but please try to be very brief, because I need to close very soon.
It's fine. Thanks, Michael, for not forgetting me. But we haven't worked really much on a skills forecast for the circular economy. I just wanted to point out that we have a sister agency, CEStakeholderEU, that is doing that exact work. And I can maybe leave the link. They have been working a lot on what is the forecasted skill set for a circular economy at large, not for electronics, but perhaps it's useful as background information. Yeah? And from my side, just to be very brief, thanks a lot for the very interesting discussion. I felt I also learned a lot today, so thank you for that.
Yes, thank you, Yanis. And it would be great if you can send us the link, or because we cannot address it in the participant chat, which is in another room, so to say, but we can share it later on with those who have listened. And maybe just also to say, how can you engage in the future? Because, of course, you just have heard, we are just starting, as in general, on circularity, being it on textiles, on food, on many other fronts. We are just starting with new business models, new skill sets. We're looking into, or the European Commission comes up with a number of regulatory measures. We need to see how it works. So if you still want to stay in touch, the leadership group is continuing also throughout this year. And you see here on the slides different opportunities to reach out. There's a LinkedIn group, complicated hashtag now, but you find it also on the stakeholder platform website. And feel free also to reach out to my colleague Imke Schmidt. And then we will try to see where we can onboard you in further discussions. So thanks very much for today. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you, Imke, for doing that impulse and preparing the session as well. And of course, to everyone who listened and decided today to join this session. Certainly there's more upcoming throughout this year in terms of podcasts, circular talks. So please stay tuned and watch out the latest news on the stakeholder platform. So have a nice day. And now probably you might want to go for lunch or to join the networking village as well. You just need to leave the auditorium to go to the main hall in order to be able to network also with other colleagues on themes you might be most interested in. So thanks for today, and have a nice rest of the afternoon.
Bye, everyone.